Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for September's Women in Program and Project Management Coffee Chats. We have a very special guest with us. Her name is Dr. Eva Singleton. Dr. Eva Singleton is a professor of engineering leadership and program management at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina. Dr. Eva Singleton is a certified project management professional with experience in government, entrepreneurship, and technical services. She is skilled in leadership, systems thinking, and value creation while holding a passion for helping others grow their careers, businesses, and academic paths through project management. Dr. Singleton's research connects project management with business, STEM, and social sciences. Dr. Singleton currently serves as the Vice President of Special Events for PMI Charleston. Dr. Singleton holds a doctorate in business administration, a master's of science in project management, and a bachelor's of business administration. Dr. Singleton lives in Moncks Corner, South Carolina, with her husband and her 5 children, in which she credits as her greatest project. Please join me today in welcoming Dr. Eva Singleton.
Thank you, Danielle, for that introduction. So as you guys can see, my topic for today is team management with emotional intelligence. And I'm going to tell a little bit of my story. The goal of this is to really be engaging. I see a lot of cameras off, so I understand if you cannot be engaged. Because it's coffee chat, I brought tea today because I was a little under the weather, but I have mine. And I'm hoping to play a game when it comes to like the question and answer, or when it comes to the coffee chat section, meaning that if you agree, you're going to give a sip signal, meaning that if you agree with a comment someone is making, you just take a sip, but just as you're able to. So let me get started. All right. So before I go to my next slide, I wanted to give you my why behind this topic first. Because if I go to my slide, I'm just going to move on along, but the why. So I realized that I did not like team projects. I did not like team engagements. From my whole school career, scholastic endeavors, from elementary, high school, college, I hated team projects. I was the person that would raise my hand and do majority of the work so I can guarantee my A, have control over my grade. I really didn't want to engage with people too much because I've learned at a very young age that team projects just always went wrong for me. Didn't go wrong because of something that I felt I did, but went wrong because I counted on a team member to, do their part. Next thing you know, we're meeting up before the delivery, and all of a sudden it didn't meet my expectations, so I didn't like that too much. I did identify I had a little control problem after a while, but I did not like team engagement at all. So when I got my master's in project management from the Citadel, and I realized and quantified my life, I realized that me as a wife, a mother of 5, a project manager for my career, now a professor, teaching project management, engaging in other people's lives. I'm an entrepreneur. My husband and I have 2 businesses. I coach and I mentor for academic, scholastic purposes, and just in the community and through our business. I'm a speaker, an author. I'm a sister to many in my church community, my actual 2 siblings that I really do have. And I'm a sister to many friends. And I am a friend I like to think, to the community. When I realized that in all of these endeavors, I am touching different aspects of projects, team management, a lot of engagement. Here's a picture of my family here in black. I only have 1 son. At the top, with maybe you're right, you see me on our podcast. You see me at a conference. I hosted this oyster roast as the VP of special events for PMI Charleston. These are my favorite books, because if I tell you I have a favorite book, I am going to mention probably all of these. So if you hear me on a speaking engagement and say Goals is my favorite book, and then you hear me at another one saying the highly effective habits of people are my favorite, just know that they all are my favorite. Okay. So, but these books have really inspired me. My faith has too. So you do see my Bible there. I love sticky notes. I love writing out things. I love participating in conference and engagements, but I did not like public speaking. And it is very oxymoron right now. And I still, public speaking is still not my favorite, but I put it here for a reason. I realized that every aspect of my life dealt with some form of team management, team engagement. Rather, it was in my personal life, with my family, with my career, with my business, with my podcast, when I traveled. I had to engage with other stakeholders, and I wasn't always effective at it. When I used to point fingers at I didn't like, team working on teams, I was forced to identify that it was an aspect of myself that I needed to develop. So in 2009, I got this 2019, sorry, I got this award from a government contracting that I work for. And this was after my project management degree. And when I got this award, I was so happy because I saw that others recognized my effort in team management. Because remember, I hated team projects. I really did. And to work on a project team, and I love project management. I found my love for project management through my husband and I kettle corn business that we used to have when we lived in Clarksville, Tennessee. I love the engagement. I love all of that. But to come to a point where I'm now being recognized for my team behavior, knowing from where I came from, even if others didn't notice, I knew how much I hated it. I knew how much it challenged me, and I did not like that. But for it to be recognized was a serious moment in my life. I give that credit to the PMBOK 5th edition, because that was the edition that I was in when I got my master's in project management. And I focused on this project stakeholder management, and this changed my life. How did it change my life? So when it comes to project stakeholder management, from the 5th edition, because that's what these numbers are from, when I had to create my stakeholder register, I had to assess for my project, which was the guiltless giving donation system. I had to assess my stakeholders, and I was very analytical about their strengths, their weaknesses, what they bring to the table of my project, how I wanted them to engage, the interactions that I expect, how much money they could contribute. I'm like really analyzing them all the way, being really critical, trying to make sure that I maximize as much effort from them, especially for those that I thought that really would give more. And then it came to a moment where I was like, well, I'm a stakeholder too. And I realized I wasn't as critical about what I required and my expectations and my potential influence. And then when it got to the interpersonal skills, I had to also really look at myself. I didn't like trusting people on project teams. I did not like resolving conflict. I would hear you, but listen, that had some challenges. And I really had a resistance to change that I didn't either understand or agree with. And so, again, achieving that award in 2019 was like a milestone for me to realize that, hey, what the inner work that I'm doing on the inside of me, knowing that my influence to projects, knowing how much I have secretly challenged myself, because I didn't vocalize this to people. Because of course, when you're filling out job applications, you're like the best candidate ever. You're not necessarily transparent unless you're in an interview and someone's asking you what are skills that you can work on. But otherwise, hey, I'm fine gauging in teams. Of course, that's what people say and do. So I realized my personal shortcomings and strengths had the power to positively and negatively influence the projects I was leading. I realized I was the greater stakeholder to manage, and I was the only one with the power to control my behavior. I did not like delegating. I did not like telling people how I felt. I did not like standing up for myself in situations that I thought was awkward. I didn't like asking people for help that I wasn't cool with. I didn't like standing up for myself or advocating my needs when it came to, working with my managers and telling them my expectation. I realized that all of the deficits that I found in myself when it came to managing and engaging with team members were things that were within my control, first of all, And I had fears, I had insecurities. So maybe it wasn't that I didn't like team engagement, I just didn't know how to. And to force myself to challenge myself to become better in the areas in the art of delegation, in the art of networking, in the art of speaking up, I had to do this inner work that I didn't see, or it wasn't obvious that other people had to work on. So I really had to face myself. And also, me being the team player, I realized, like I mentioned earlier, that stakeholder engagement is not limited to when I go to work. Stakeholder engagement, because I see my life as my greatest project ever, right? I have my children, I have my businesses, I'm a part of all of these different areas. I'm out in the community, I'm teaching, I'm influencing the next generation. I'm doing many projects all the time. And I have PMI's definition of a project here: a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. I am doing this all day, and I'm teaching it, and I'm being an example, at least to my children, if I'm not an example to no one else. I'm being an example to my neighbors, to my husband, to my sisters, and they are seeing me executing something called life. So I knew I had to fix it, and I was proud of myself in 2019 to receive that first milestone that, hey, I'm doing the inner work. So the purpose of this presentation is to explore how emotional intelligence can strengthen team management. The action that we're going to leave with here today is to apply emotional intelligence to each stage of team development to strengthen stakeholder engagement and management, to offer techniques to effectively form teams and know how to adjourn when necessary, and successful delivery value in our personal life and our projects. Most of the times when we approach project management, we only look at the value delivery from a project perspective. What did this project gain? Did we, meet the requirements? Did we do all of that? But if we go a step further, we can also look at value delivery of what we gain, what attributes, what strengths that I enhance, what weaknesses that I overcome on projects. So this emotional, intelligent approach to team management is something that really transformed my life, not just in how I engage in business, not just in how I teach, but how I lead a life and a legacy that I am going to be proud of and that I am currently proud of. So for our quick agenda, it's behavior management for project practitioners, an icebreaker, for those of you that can turn your cameras on, or, if you can't, as long as you engage, you can do it by the chat, I believe, right, Danielle? They can do it by chat, right? Okay, she said yes. Or, if you can open up your mics, that would be great. So the 2 strengths and a misconception, that's dealing with project teams. So 2 strengths you bring to the project team, and 1 misconception, meaning something others think you're great at, but you secretly know that you need to work on a little bit. That's the misconception. Emotional intelligence overview, Tuckman's stages of team development, engagement, our coffee chat for those of us that have something to sip, and today's takeaway and any questions. So a quick overview when it comes to behavior management. All right. So from our PMBOK, the project management body of knowledge, we have our 12 project management principles, right? And they guide our behavior as project practitioners. A project practitioner is anybody that's involved in any form of project work. So whether you have a title in project management, or you're an entrepreneur engaging in projects, you're around the house doing projects, anybody that can identify with working in some capacity with projects. Project management is captured in any and every arena. Projects is how businesses make money. Projects is how we accomplish our personal goals. There's always a project to be worked on, okay? So those involved in projects create extraordinary value through principled behavior. Before the new PMBOK came out, because this one, as you see referenced on the screen, it's probably too small for you guys to read, but that's from the 7th edition of the PMBOK. When I first learned about my behavior, it was in PMBOK 5, where we didn't focus on behavior management. But my desire to become better in that one area of team engagement forced me, once I looked deep enough, to focus on my behavior on project teams. So I was happy, thrilled to get the framework of project management principles and to see myself and my heart's desire to become better. I was already practicing these things. So I felt like at the core of my soul in the project management that I love, that I was in alignment with the overall vision and direction of project management globally. So that kind of made me feel great too, is that it's the principles. We are our greatest hindrance or benefactor to the projects we engage on. Before we point fingers at what a customer did or what a supplier may have done, we have to make sure that we are fully equipped with everything that we could possibly have to make our project successful, right? And that requires doing the inner work. You know, sometimes the soft skills that we need, the interpersonal skills that we need, are sometimes harder to obtain and quantify. It's easier to get the hard skills because you can easily measure those things. You know, is wrapped up in your knowledge and understanding of certain things and how you can execute certain things. But it doesn't challenge our heart and our actions. So here are the 12 project management principles. So for the sake of time, I'm not going to go over each one of them, but I do encourage you to explore those if you're not familiar with these 12 project management principles. So for our icebreaker, for those that want to open up your mics, if you could state your name and give 2 project team strengths and misconceptions, I will definitely start first. My main strength is ideation. I like coming up with ideas. I love brainstorming. Another strength of mine is that I am a natural encourager. You know, if you feeling down, call me. I can definitely find a way to lift you up. Rather, I give words of affirmation. I sing and dance. I'm not a great dancer, so that tends to make people smile. You know, and I sing happy birthday, sunshine songs on demand just to get a smile on someone's face on my team. A misconception. Okay. One misconception is that I am an extrovert. I promise I am not. I do not get energy from people, but because of how I present when I'm doing something I love, people tend to think I'm an extrovert. So they like to invite me to different places and want me to do extra stuff. And I'm like at capacity. So, do we have any volunteers to share your two strengths and a misconception?
I can get started after you. So I
Okay.
think one of my strengths is communicating with stakeholders.
Mhm.
I'm really good at getting buy-in, mainly because I'm good at talking with people and finding something that's relatable and connecting with them. Another strength is that I also love coming up with ideas and driving those ideas, but a misconception about me is that I'm good with my schedule. Yeah, I sometimes I'm just so busy and I take on too much and things just fall by the wayside, but it's something I'm working on getting better at and I'm practicing it every day and just reminding myself that I'm not alone in this because I feel like a lot of project managers have that same issue.
That is awesome. Thank you. Same here. Anyone else?
I can go next. Sorry, I can't have my camera on because I just got an eye infection and it's pretty bad.
Oh,
Um, so yeah, I would say one of my strengths is I'm very detail oriented. A lot of people that know me call me, the elephant memory? Like I have an elephant memory, so I'm not just at work, but in personal life, I tend to get to know the person on a very personal level, whether they know it or not. And I kind of use that as an advantage to, I'm very more sentimental. So when it comes to like birthdays, I don't, just give like gift cards or a card. I like remember what they actually like, the smallest things. So if they like pink, I like to get something in pink for them. And if they have a favorite animal, I like to get them that animal in that color. So when it comes to the professional field of it, I apply that to the projects as well. So when I'm communicating with the stakeholders, I find out the pain points that they bring to me and then try to kind of resolve it and also try to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Um, I guess a misconception is I think people think I'm also an extrovert. I'm not sure. I consider myself, well, I always grew up as an introvert, like a hardcore introvert. And then as I grew older, I started to experience the world more. And I would like to think that I changed to an ambivert, not an extrovert. So there's a misconception on that, I think. I'm not sure, but that's what I get out of it from people. But like you, I would love to, I guess, engage in my community more, but I'm not exactly sure how. I don't really know where to start. And I guess that's one of my strengths. I'm always researching. I'm always willing to learn. I'm always willing to reach out to people. I never did that when I was a child. That's something because I was an introvert. That's something I always pushed back on because I was kind of scared and timid. But growing older, or growing up, I realized the more quiet you are, the more you are going to be sheltered. So that's something that I learned and
That's
I practice on.
Thank you so much for sharing. I sipped quite a few times. I think on every point that you said, thank you for sharing and for speaking up. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. My name is Courtney Williams, and thank you so much for doing this. This has been amazing. And so I think one of my skills, well, two of my skills is that I'm definitely gregariously charming. Like multiple people have said that, and I'm like, that's very, that's a very specific sentiment. I think I definitely like to make people feel comfortable. I also think that I'm very good at just kind of reaching consensus. I like to do kind of deep research to make sure that I have kind of everyone's feedback so that we can all make sure that we're aligned as we move forward together. And I think that one misconception that people have about me is they think that I'm like far more confident than I am. I feel like every single time that I speak or every single time that like I do something, I really have to kind of like push myself to go out there. And people are always like, you're so confident. Like I would never guess that. But yeah, I definitely suffer from like confidence issues. So
Courtney, I'm with you. I had to take a big gulp when it came to confidence because I'm nervous now. I had to like beef myself up, listen to some music, just to get started here today. So I completely understand. All right. Larissa, were you going to add anything?
Yeah, sure. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you
When
too.
I saw, I joined the PMI as a volunteer role, so that's where I know Eva from. And when I saw they were going to speak, and the little I spoke with, she was like, "Oh my gosh, I need to attend that."
Thank
So
you.
thanks for doing this. And so one of my strengths is that I'm very proactive. When I want something, I'm a go-getter. Sometimes it's a little bit even overwhelming because it causes some anxiety. So to that's the misconceptions. People, oh, she's a go-getter, she knows what she wants it. But no, sometimes I'm like causing so much stress and so much like overload and like having anxiety, because of like I want things to work, but I know I'm doing what I can, right? But they will work at the right time. And yeah, so I think that's one of the things just want to share.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you all for sharing. And one note I wanted to make, Jessica, if we can connect afterwards, I would like to talk to you a little bit more about engagement and things like that, if you're interested.
Yeah, no, for sure. I was actually going to mention, or I was going to message you on LinkedIn. I believe I connected with you before this coffee chat. So, yeah, definitely.
Okay, we will. Hold me to it.
All
Okay,
right.
great.
Hey, Eva, I believe Magenta had her hand up as well.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we were doing hands, so sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah, I can't put my camera on now, but I will later in time for the group photo. So, I think like as a strength about me is that, I'm very good at like kind of like visualizing a process and identifying like where things can break down and also like where to improve things too. And like, you know, also like seeing like where to go to or who to go to for that sort of thing and seeing like how to correct it. And another thing is I'm good at like tailoring to my audience. So like I've written a lot of manuals in my job experiences. So like I've had to like cater to different audiences with those. And kind of like a side effect of writing all these manuals is that people think I know all the answers and I don't. And I guess that's a misconception. So, it's been like, a challenge early on in my career to like admit that I don't know something. But um yeah, so that's me.
Thank you, Magenta. I feel the same sentiment. In government contracting, I worked on the satellite project called Confers, and it dealt with the road rules of how satellites should rendezvous out of space. Danielle's familiar with the name of that project. So when people like saw it or I talked about the projects that I worked on, they would think I'm this expert in satellites. It was like, hold on. I did the process. I helped them. So it was definitely in some rooms, it was hard to say that I don't really know anything about the satellites itself because they would give me this big introduction and I would be scared to deflate it. I'm like, that's not me. So I
I
completely understand.
I actually want to chime in on that because at my last company, I feel like everyone relied on me for answers because I was one of the longest employees there. And two, I took it upon myself to actually learn the whole business. Just because I guess like for me, it's common sense. Like if you're in that position and you work for a company, shouldn't you know the business? So, um, I took it upon myself to learn the product, the software. So I feel like everyone came to me, but on the back of my mind, I knew I didn't know everything. Maybe I portrayed like that energy. So I can say it is very stressful. And I also learned like boundaries. So even though I was the longest employee there, it doesn't mean I know everything. And if I don't know everything, you know, getting that blame put on me sometimes
Mhm.
is a negative effect, but I learned to make I learned to like not let it affect me because I can't control what I don't know. And especially because I know that I took it upon myself to go above and beyond where it's not really within my scope of responsibility. So I also think that's one of my strengths too. I want to learn everything just so it can help me progress.
Absolutely. Thank you for adding that. That was really good. Thank you. All right. So, emotional intelligence, it's the ability to recognize and understand the emotions of yourself and others to use as information to make positively impactful decisions. When I'm like on social media and certain YouTube or TikToks come up and people are talking about emotional intelligence because it's such a buzzword, it grieves me sometimes to hear how people explain emotional intelligence. It is not about just your feelings. It doesn't stop there. It is not how well you can just assess someone else's feelings and blame them for being emotional. That's not emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is being able to identify your emotions in a given situation with the others that are involved in a given situation. Calculate it, assess it, use everyone's emotions to make decisions that help everybody. And if you can't do that, then you have not made emotions intelligent. Okay. So it's not just able to identify when someone's upset or when someone is not emotionally available and whatever other buzzwords is out there. Okay. Because I see relationships rather domestic as a team, and I see, teams across like in my pictures there everything is every relationship has some form of team if you're working together towards something, right? And there's a difference between team and group, but that's for another discussion. But for emotions to be intelligent, it has to be able to inform, and you have to be able to make impactful decisions that benefits everyone. not denying your emotions, okay? But taking that, I'm upset right now. This situation is bothering me. Being able to cognitively assess why this is bothering me, why I don't like it. What do I need to do about it? Well, that person's happy. They're not upset. That person is such and such. Why isn't that person upset? What do they know that I don't? Okay. And you facilitate the right conversations, knowing that you're upset, but you pocket that, put that to the side. So, okay, what can we do as a collective to make this situation better? Because this makes me upset, this makes you happy, this person confused, such and such. What do we need to do to get from this stage of our project to our desired stage of the project? So again, that's how we use emotions intelligently. Okay, so this framework, and I do have a link here. Danielle, if I send my presentation to you, can you send it out?
Yep, I can send it out.
Okay, great. So that you can have the links to it. So when it comes to Coleman's 5 components of EQ, I'm trying to force myself to say EQ. I really say EI a lot, but emotional quotient, which is the same thing as emotional intelligence. These 5 components are very important. Being self-aware, self-regulated. So before you quantify anybody else's emotions, you have to be so aware of yourself and so regulated in yourself to be motivated to have empathy for others and to engage and socialize with others. Okay. So if you're emotionally unavailable, if you don't know how to regulate your emotions, then you are already a threat to our project teams. For myself, I wasn't using emotions very intelligently. I shut down emotions. I could consider myself the shutdown queen. If I don't like something, I'm a flight risk. I'm leaving. I don't necessarily have to make a big scene or anything, but if Eva didn't like it, Eva snuck out the back door, Eva exit the side because I'm normally quiet in environments anyways. I have gone. If I couldn't physically leave, I have checked out mentally, okay? And I pride myself at one point, that's self-awareness. I know what I like. I know what I don't like. I'm aware of how I feel. And I'm justified in that feeling. And that's how I felt. And but it's like, okay, but once I have identified how I am self-aware, what's next? How am I going to regulate those feelings? And I'm like challenged again. So it's not enough to identify them. I have to have self-control now. So I have to be able to build myself up to sit through difficult conversations. Like I have to do that. And I have to fix my face and I have to be mature. And it was a real process. Again, why getting that award in 2019 was very important to me. Motivation. I'm great. It's a strength for me to motivate others. But it's hard to motivate myself. It is. I like it to that example, that analogy that is circulating social media about, someone eating off your tree, like the gifts and abilities that you have is for others, for you to give to others. But you may not necessarily possess those strengths to give to yourself, like advice. You can give great advice to other people, but when it's time to apply the advice, things get a little gray. Okay, motivation, you need to pick me up, I have you. But I couldn't do that for myself. But I had to find out how to do that for myself. And that was hard. I realized I had a lot of negative self-talk. I realized that, I wasn't as competent in areas that I appeared. It was a misconception. I like riding on the cloud of misconception because that helped me ease by, but I didn't do any real work to develop certain competencies prior. So to have empathy, to really have a care for the experience of others and the experience of the project team, and to look at people's lives as just not a contributor to whatever we're working on, but, to have sympathy for people that are single, to have sympathy for no matter what someone's situation is, to compare, I have 5 children, why can't you do it? Because in my eyes, when it came to project work and I'm on these teams, my workload, but I don't know what they're dealing with. And it's not fair or wise for me to compare what I'm able to manage and juggle to someone else. I didn't know if they lost a loved one. I didn't know if they never bounce back from that last setback. It's unfair for me to be on these project teams and expect people to deliver like they're me with all of my skills and all of my strengths. And even though we're here getting the same information, we're processing different. We're in different places in life. And to have empathy for people. I was on a project team one time, and it was a smoker on the project team, and I'm not a smoker. And we used to have to, sit down for long hours in brainstorming. That's something that I like to do. And this individual, it got on my nerves, y'all, but this person had to keep going outside. And I was getting a little frustrated. Like, to me, it felt like every 5 minutes. To this person's point, it probably was like every 45 minutes to an hour. But to me, it was like, you're getting up again. I'm getting frustrated. Okay. And then, we had a conversation because I'm working on voicing my opinion and conflict resolution. So we had a conversation and it went well. So I was happy. The person didn't get offended. The person understood. The person let me know that they're working on that. And the person let me know that that's how they process stress and all of that. I gained a little bit more empathy. And then this person, because of my request, did not go outside as much on our next team meeting. And guess what, guys? I was like, can you go outside? Can you go have your break? Because in seeing this person try to engage, it was hard for me to watch this person literally try to participate, try to be a team player. But I realized that, we all have different ways of expressing stress. I can sit here and just shake my leg and wait for my turn to come on. That person, dealing with their own personal development, that person needed those breaks, even if it was just to go get fresh air. And I had to learn to have empathy for people that have different threats, different weaknesses. I can't get frustrated because they can't sit in the room and I can sit in the room for hours. So I had to, and that helped me shape my social skills and how I engage with people that have different idiosyncrasies than I do and make them feel welcome. And naturally, because we were on this project for about 6 months, because this individual felt so welcome and so accepted, that this individual's anxiety, started to decrease after constantly team meetings, that we celebrated noticing that the person didn't have to go outside. So me changing and accepting this individual and allowing this individual to develop along with the team created such a psychological safe place through us finally understanding to have empathy, that this person was able to sharpen their social skills, at least within our team dynamic, and that's growth and that was growth that I experienced on that project team. Emotional intelligence techniques to explore. If we're working on self-awareness, do a SWOT analysis. Identify your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, not just one time, but after each project, after you experience something great, after you experience something that wasn't so great. Assess yourself, be honest with yourself, journal about it, journal how you feel about it. When it comes to self-regulation, cognitive framing, rearranging your experience that are negative and finding the light, the positive inside those experiences, okay? Oh, I didn't fail, I learned, and this is what I learned. Quantify it. Oh, I didn't speak up for myself right in that situation, but this is how I can speak up for myself on another occasion. Practice, okay? When it comes to motivation, if you're lacking motivation, SMART goals, vision boards, journey mapping, thinking back, going back to childhood or wherever you want to find yourself going back to, and journalizing and journeying through all of your strengths. Here I was a captain on my sports team and just journey through and find that motivation, knowing that, hey, hindsight is 2020, and I do have experiences that show forth that I am good in these areas. Okay, having empathy, emotion labeling, identifying the emotion. Emotion is very important. Sometimes we're so upset and so frustrated that we can't, without processing and that alone time, we can't figure out what emotion we're actually dealing with to try to overcome that. And when it comes to emotionally labeling someone else, having conversations, being strategic, finding yourself friendly, engaging. Sometimes, and I didn't put this in the slide here, but this is my true sentiment of when I realize I'm lacking empathy, it means I don't have a relationship. If I find myself lacking empathy with someone, I realize that I do not have a good enough relationship with them to understand them. And the better I relate to them, the more I would naturally gain empathy for them. And empathy mapping, finding out where your emotions lead you. Okay. And never letting your emotions take you places that you do not want to go. Ooh, I'm upset right now. Now, if I stay in this emotion, I know I'm going to X, Y, and Z, and I really don't want to go there. So what motion can I temporarily activate so that my team, whether it's my actual work team, my house, my household, my family team, or a neighbor that I'm frustrated with whoever I'm trying to work alongside, how could I identify the appropriate behavior and execute it? And social skills. A feed forward is identifying a skill and intentionally practicing it to go forward, feeding it forward. What if scenarios, talking to a coach or mentor about, can we work out this scenario? Now, for me, if some of you like me, I have a lot of conversations in the shower. Like, I'm going through whatever scenarios. Ooh, if I say this, ooh, if I say that. I have a lot of those. And I'm quickly through Tuckman's stages of team development. I appreciate this team development because I was first introduced to it through PMBOK 5, doing some research. And it's actually in PMBOK 6 and 7, actually. Tuckman's team development. All teams, no matter where you're on, all relationships have a forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. Okay, so here it's saying that Bruce Tuckman, that's his name, created the forming, norming, storming, performing team development in 1965, and later added adjourning of how we deal with our projects ending. And when we understand how to apply these stages to our team environment, coupled with emotional intelligence, we can achieve our goals, hopefully, with less stress. Okay, so forming, team initiation, there's a lot of uncertainty. I call it the team moon phase, not team moon like the store, but team moon like a honeymoon. Everybody's nice. Hello, how are you? If you ever need anything, contact me. Everybody's so nice and friendly, and everyone's, kind of pretentious, sure, I'll do that for you. Everyone's great until conflict arises, right? And you learn a different side. Is a conflict. There's usually a problem with role identification or a role expectation that wasn't met, or how someone, handled something. There's a storm. Then we norm, we find alignment, we get back to our common purpose, we perform, we do the project work, we attain a goal, and we close the project or we transition to something else depending on your project organization structure. So when you're forming, your emotional intelligence that we should focus on is self-awareness and empathy, having that at the very beginning. During a storm, regulating, still having empathy, social skills. A lot of us, me being first, shut down during storms. I had to practice how to be active and how should I activate myself during storms. Okay, norming, keeping that motivation, still being very empathetic, not holding on to the past, so to speak. Performing, activating all of the EQ skills, okay? Because we have to get the job done. And adjourning, again, activating all of them. And your order of how you activate these per stages depends on you, okay? And then our behavior management, because like I said at the beginning, I had to realize that I was in control of my behavior. My flight risk, I was in control of that. How I didn't want to show up, me not liking to delegate, me not liking public speaking and all those things, me not liking conflict. I had to learn behaviors to help me, become better. So informing, if my leader or my management team don't establish this, I ask these questions, okay? Because I can only do what I can control. What's our purpose? What's the purpose of this team? Like, what's our end goal? Can we define team values so that I can make sure that we are in alignment, that we can meet each other's expectations? What are our assets? Meaning, what do you bring to the table? What do I bring to the table? Because I'm going to tell you, I'm not necessarily the executioner, okay? I don't really like executing that much. But for brainstorming, I'm here for you. If I have to execute, you tell me specifically what is to be executed, and I can do that. But because I'm across a lot of projects, I don't want to be, the weak link in the chain. Okay, so offer your assets. What are you good at? Be transparent about the things that are not. The misconceptions, guys, before we start, is usually this misconception that I like to go out after meetings. That ain't me. I'm not avoiding you guys. But those 5 kids and all these other things, I'm ready to go home if I can get a break or such and such. So I'm not being antisocial, I promise. But I want to get that misconception, out the way, establish trust, having patience, storming, manage emotions. Remember, gather information so we can make emotions intelligent. Recall the purpose. Hey, remember why we're here. Remember our team values. Okay. Oh, you don't believe in the team values? Okay, so what value is missing so that you can be a believer? Or you don't feel like you fit on this team? Okay, let's talk that through. Why don't you feel you can fit on the team? Because sometimes it's within their behavior. And you have to be strategic in how you deal because we all at different stages of our personal development. Okay. Provide psychological safety. Okay. Through the little storm we had with someone that needed a smoke break, eventually that psychological safety happened, and offer autonomy, offer trust, even during that storm. You know what? I'm going to let you handle it. I understand that we're all trying to get along here. I'm going to set these boundaries, but I'm trusting you to deliver. Okay. Norming, performing, and adjourning. For the sake of time and knowing that you guys are going to get the slides, I'm going to move on to our coffee chat interactive discussion. So the first one, what behavior can you bring to a newly formed team based on behaviors you have mastered? Does anyone want to answer that for the forming stage? A behavior that you could bring to a newly formed team that you feel you have mastered. Okay, I can go. I feel like a behavior that I bring to a team is wanting to engage. I go in wanting to engage now. I go in asking questions because I feel like I know which questions to ask. I'm going to ask questions about, hey, what are your strengths? What are your assets? What would you prefer me not to ask you to do on this project? So that, so I can find out who are great at certain things, who would rather not, but can, so that I could up front form a team that are happy with their positions on the team. Danielle, I saw you unmute.
Yes. First off, that's a great answer. For me, I think I'm good at level setting. Right when we get into the project kickoff meeting, I want everyone to know, like, hey, this is what you should be expecting. This is, like you said, our goal. And right now, like, this is like how much time we're expecting you to dedicate. This is what our outcomes are going to be, like what I need from the group, because I want them to go into this project understanding like we have a goal and we need to complete this goal, and this is how we're going to get there. So that's what I could bring.
Absolutely. Thank you. Which component of emotional intelligence is a strength to apply during team conflict? Can anybody think of a component of emotional intelligence, rather as self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, social skills? Which one do you feel is a strength to bring during the storm?
I think that empathy would be a huge one. I think that just like you said with the smoker story, just understanding how different people like kind of see the world, handle themselves, and just understanding, because I feel like you can say something a specific way and think that someone heard ABC, but they heard like XYZ and then they're upset, and you're now in a situation where you are storming and you don't understand what the point of like friction is.
Absolutely. Thank you. And they're all, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jay.
Sorry, Eva. First off, just want to say you guys make me so proud, and I feel like I can relate to everyone that's chimed in here in all of our hardworking endeavors and aspirations, and also our insecurities and and uncertainty. I really want to thank you, everyone, for making me feel like it's okay to be insecure at times, to be uncertain at times. But this is what I've noticed in team conflicts. If I can just state the obvious, the elephant in the room, to say, hey, I'm sensing some tension here. I'm sensing anxiety. I'm sensing stress. Can we talk about that? And I've seen, I've observed that sometimes that helps.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing, Jade. I share the same sentiment. Awesome. So name a emotional intelligent behavior that has helped move your team from clashing to collaborating. And that could be any behavior you can think of. I think Jade just stated one, just the elephant in the room, bringing a focus, basically calling the meeting really quick. Hey, how's everyone doing? Assessment. I feel some tension in the room. That is definitely a way to get the team from one state of clashing to collaborating. Danielle, were you going to add there?
Yes, and I don't agree with this, what I'm about to say. I don't agree with this, but it was a very interesting thing I noticed. I was part of a team, um, not really leading the project or anything. I was just a collaborator with them, and it was my first time being with them, and they just were very open with each other and they yelled it out, and then they went back to like they got all that emotion out, and then they went back to collaborating, and in some way, it kind of made them better. It was confusing to me because I don't recommend that style, but I think just finding that footing with the team and seeing how they work together, they've all known each other for over 15 years, so they were very comfortable being very brutally honest with each other. And it was alarming, but sometimes I think you just need to understand the dynamics of the team, and if it works, it works.
Yes, they had to like get it off their chest and then move on.
Sometimes I hold that my intrusive thoughts in, and they were not holding back.
Thank you for sharing. How do you know when your team is truly performing? Like, how do you know it's safe? Like, we've made it past the conflict. Everything's going good. We're working together. One telltale sign for me is when people are socializing afterwards. Even if it's that small remnant within the group, it's like after a while, the team is performing. When we are, moving through our checklists, milestones are being, achieved, and we're about to celebrate and we're planning for the celebrations, or we're looking for people to identify for awards, like, we're almost through for me. And the last one, how can project closure be an emotionally intelligent moment instead of just a checklist? Does anyone have any thoughts about adjourning? Because earlier I talked about, closing a project and having value personally and delivering the project value. So, how can project closure be an
I
emotionally intelligent moment? Sorry, go ahead, Mariah.
I think that something that a previous team that I was on did when we were closing a project was kind of like talking about like the highlights, what people did to make you feel like more like comfortable or like you were being heard on the team, and just, sharing positives about each other. I think that was a good way to like wrap up the like project we were working on. It was just like, I really appreciated, Courtney, when you like came in and you stepped up and you did this for me when I was like sick or whatever. And it feels like small moments, but to that person it meant a lot for them to like have that person. So I think that was like something really cool.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. All right. And so for today's takeaway, as time has moved on without us, so the action to apply emotional intelligence to each stage of team development to strengthen stakeholder engagement management, leaving with techniques to effectively form and adjourn, and to successfully deliver value. Okay, so I hope that you guys could grab and grow these points. And Danielle's going to send out the PowerPoint presentation. And that is all I had for everyone today. So I'm here for questions. Here's my LinkedIn. Happy to engage. We do have, for those that are local to Charleston, where I am, we do have a Project Management Institute Charleston, PMI Charleston networking event for those who would like to meet me in person and our project team in on Daniels Island at Newbury. I think that's what it is. Newbury is also on my LinkedIn page on October 3rd for an in-person engagement. But that is all I have.
Thank you so much, Eva. That was amazing. I know a lot of people who would definitely benefit from this presentation. So we'll open the floor for questions. We do have 3 minutes left, and then I would like to take a group photo with everyone. So the floor is open. Additionally, if you do not ask your questions now, you can also email me and I can send them to Eva.
Going
Eva,
back to
I heard you mention you work with government as well as private. Do you?
In the past, yes, I was doing government contracting before I worked at McGraw-Hill, and now I'm at the Citadel as a professor.
Do you do like one? Can you be a guest speaker or a PMO in an org? Can you? Do you also do training in PMO teams?
I can. So I have a business called Your Business Depot where I do consulting through. I can understand the requirements that you're trying to achieve for your PMO and help towards that and develop a plan.
Cool. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Jessica, I think you had unmuted at the same time as Jade.
I was just going to ask, going back to, I guess, showing empathy with team members and um, making sure conflict becomes collaboration. Like, what happens if you can't really resolve the conflict?
Great question. Sometimes that happens, but the only thing you can control at the end of the day is how you handle things, right? And you controlling how you handle things, you have to use that same empathy to give people the space to develop at their own pace. So as long as you have a self-reflection, how can I add what I can do? How can I make the situation better? But the minute it leaves your control, you have to relinquish that, you know, how that other person is going to take care of it and only show up in your best and in your excellence. If they don't reciprocate it, you know, it's for them to work on. But again, in you engaging in empathy, when they are ready, if they are ready, you are willing to engage at that time.
So what if it affects the project timeline?
That happens too. And that's where you would have to, you know, understand, you know, your thresholds. You know, if someone's actions or their ability to to work cohesively is affecting project timeline, then that's a time for escalation. That's a time to get management involved, leader involved, making sure that you have documented your conversations that you have had, making sure that you have proof that, hey, these are the stages that we have worked on, these are the conversations that we have had, this person is unwilling to engage, the timeline is going to be affected. You know, what resources can you do to add to my team? And again, you're talking to a manager or leader or the sponsor, because this individual, because usually in project teams, we don't have authority over those that we are assigned to work with. So you would definitely have to pull on someone that does have the authority, but proving that you have done all that you could do.
Okay, great.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we are at time. Thank you so
Thank you,
much. And thank you, Eva.
Thank you.